Okay, I think we are live. Hello, and welcome to the first ever StartupOS Pitch Perfect Demo Day. At StartupOS, we are on a mission to democratize access to innovation tools, guidance, and capital, and dramatically increase the likelihood of those ideas becoming successful businesses. We feel there's an essential, intangible something in startups, an energy, a soul. It inspires people to contribute their talent, hopefully money, and enthusiasm, and fosters a sense of deep connection and mutual purpose. For the past 30 days, 5 startups have been hard at work using our early release platform to craft their pitch-perfect presentations. They completed 7 power-ups, which are learn by doing exercises that included market testing and mentor check-ins to guide them on their journey. Before we kick off the presentations, I would like to introduce our investor panelists and thank them for joining us today. Elaine Zelby from SignalFire, Erik Filipek from Savant Growth, DeMarcus Williams from SVB, Tom Whiteaker from IBM Ventures, and David Dreessen from Everest Technologies. I would also like to thank Silicon Valley Bank, who has provided us with our fundings. SVB has been supporting founders for over 35 years to get their start, just like us. And I would finally like to thank our sponsors, Sven, Advanced Creative, and U+. Audience, we'd love to hear from you. Please use the chat feature to give kudos to our presenters, and please use the Q&A if you have questions for the startups. To our 5 startups, happy pitch perfect, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Now, in our leadoff position and to kick off the event, the magnetic Nate Fish of Footprint. Over to you, Nate.
Hey guys, how you doing? My name, as Paul just said, is Nate Fish. I'm the founder of Footprint. Let's get right into it. So, the 2 cute babies you see on the right side of your screen, my twin niece and nephew, Luca and Leo. For their first birthday, I didn't want to give them another toy. I wanted to give them something immaterial, the sense of love and gratitude I've always had for my family. So instead of getting them a toy, I started them email accounts. And I told friends and family to send photos, videos, and messages. And when they're old enough, I'll give them their password and they'll have this time capsule curated by their family. I thought it was brilliant. I thought I had invented love storage. Turns out I hadn't invented anything at all. In our customer discovery, we've learned that over 90% of families are using some kind of technology to try to preserve memories and information for their children. And if you think about your family, what you use, it's either a Dropbox or a fake email like we were, or at the very least, endless shared folders and threads, and it all sort of just disappears into the ether of your phone. This is a very, very, very prevalent problem. And the problem is that none of these products that we're using are actually designed for this purpose. It's sort of a clumsy workaround. So after looking for a couple years, we decided to invent one. Footprint is a mobile application that provides this exact service for families. It allows families to store and share feelings, memories, and important information for their children. It's a really, really powerful organizational tool for families and parents. First of all, ultimately, it's a life-changing gift for kids when they receive their accounts. I think the easiest way to illustrate what exactly Footprint does is with this sort of user journey of a single account. So if you can imagine, a child is born, parents start them a Footprint account, and they invite a group of people into the account. The group stores and shares photos, videos, and messages specifically for the child. There's this sort of institutional level to Footprint where they can track school, health, and finance. And at the same time, the app is automatically aggregating information about popular culture and media and adding it to the timeline. When the family decides, children receive their Footprint account as a gift and they become the owners of the content. And they use the app as a portal containing all of their important personal, institutional, and cultural information. And this process is where we get our tagline, store love today, share it tomorrow. while we're talking about the product a little bit, there's a little sneak peek at the interface on the right side of the screen. UI is a very, very, very strong suit and strong point for us. But as far as positioning goes, and something that really makes Footprint different is we're anti-social media, sort of as a response to the techno disaster of the last 10 years that social media has sort of unleashed on all of us. So if we think about Footprint, there's no public facing component to the interface. We do not want people using it compulsively. There's no trivial content. There's no ads. You have total parental control and total ownership. And I can't overstate what a problem this has become with parents and social media. We have our first generation of kids growing up with parents who have social media accounts, and they are oversharing their children's content on social media. There's a word for this. It's called sharenting. In a recent New York Times article that you can read with this link here, found that by 2030, 2/3 of identity fraud cases are going to be from sharenting. And not only the New York Times is covering this, it's all over the place. Lots and lots of news about this phenomenon. Shifting a little bit from the product stuff into the sort of size of the market and the opportunity, Footprint exists at the intersection of these three growing markets: baby gifts, baby tech, and smart parenting. We jokingly say Footprint is for anyone with a family and an internet connection, but it's not really a joke. It has real major cross-cultural, cross-generational appeal. On the right side of the screen, there's a few things that help us sort of get an idea of the market size. There's so many different ways to calculate TAM, SAM, and SOM that we decided to just give you these few data points instead. So there's 140 million customers or babies born every year worldwide, 4 million in the United States alone. We know 85% of their parents are using smartphones. We know the average gift for a newborn is anywhere between $30 and $200. And we know that the average American household is spending $13,000 per year per child. And so there's an enormous opportunity with market size here. Okay, continuing on the money stuff. There's three ways that Footprint makes money. First of all, you can get a free account. We don't make money that way, and many people will choose that option, and we hope they love the product. The first way we make money is with subscriptions to a premium account at $5 a month, $50 a year, $500 for a lifetime subscription, and that gives you more members, more storage, and more features. That is going to be the only revenue generating component in the initial product that we're releasing next month. We'll get to that in a little bit. Eventually, we'll have a curated marketplace within Footprint for the members to buy meaningful gifts on signature life events. And we'll also have that financial component that we were talking about before. People can have college funds, car funds, travel funds, and we'll make a transaction fee on some of those. And those are the three ways that we're going to generate money. One of the interesting things socially and economically about the product is this sort of network effect. So there's a lot of invitations in our customer discovery. It hasn't been one customer, one Footprint account. In each account, we anticipate there's going to be between 10 and 16 people. And these invitations are going to be going out from moms and brothers and cousins and uncles and people that you love and trust. So we think we're going to have a really, really high conversion rate and an opportunity to grow through this organic model. And also, if you just think about the lifetime value of one of these accounts and one of these customers, there's a real multiplier effect with that growth. Okay, here's a little snapshot of kind of what we've done in the past and what we're doing right now and what's coming up next. So in the past, we found our technical partners that are building the product. Multimedia, you'll learn more about Jeff Nolte and his company in the next slide. We built a prototype. We've got user testing results from that prototype. We've built a really, really strong advisory team that you'll see again in upcoming slides. We've structured the company. We began raising money and have received some money. We are almost done with the MVP. And we've started sort of even before launch building this community. So we have 100 families on our waiting list and nearly 500 followers, for example, on Instagram. We've been publishing regularly on Medium to try and get some of our messaging out there and build a community of people and get feedback from them. Like I said, we're going to market next month. We're going to start our first sort of learning cycle then and be on our way, hopefully, to product market fit and a proper seed round. So looking ahead to next year, if and when we raise that seed round, scaling the company, that means scaling, obviously, the staff and the team, launching those institutional components, school health and finance, launching the shop and starting to have a mature company and product and user base. Okay, so financially, this is sort of where we're at. We're raising $500,000 right now in exchange for 10% of Footprint. So on a safe note, with a $5 million cap, we've currently raised $200,000. These numbers have changed slightly even this morning. I haven't had a chance to update this, but we got $50,000 this morning. That remaining $300,000 will give us about 12 months of runway at the current burn rate. You can see some of that math. I mean, our real cost right now is technical development, my own sort of very moderate salary, and a little bit of a marketing budget. There is another alternate path where if someone were to give us what would equate to a seed round, $2 to $5 million right now, all of this stuff would just get accelerated. The team, hiring people, throwing much more money at growth marketing, things like that. So there's another scenario where we raise more money now as opposed to next year, and we sort of accelerate the path to the same outcome. Okay, the team. So my background is not in tech or business, it's in sports and art. I am a baseball coach and an artist / creative director. So I'm taking some of those leadership skills from sports to build the team and the company culture, some of those creative skills from my art background to build the product. My partner on the project is Jeff Nolte. He's the founder and CEO of Multimedia. Jeff personally invested, as did Multimedia. I think it's important to note he's not an employee of Footprint. He's a third-party agency that we've hired to build the technology. Currently, I'm the only person that's full-time on the project and still own over 90% of the company. But Jeff is an expert and very, very optimistic. Mentioned the board of advisors here below, notably Paul, of course, and our accelerator, StartupOS. And everyone else sort of filling in their roles in exchange for advisory shares. Lastly, we're going to return to this sort of emotional hook of the product that's really, really important, and ask you to imagine receiving a Footprint account, how it could have impacted your life. Photos, and videos, and messages from family members, and money that's been saved for you, of course. And we really, really believe it's an inevitability that a generation of kids is going to grow up with Footprint or something very, very much like it. And we're really lucky to have this opportunity to build it for them. Thanks.
That was terrific. Thank you so much. And before I jump into some questions, I just wanted, for full transparency, I have no advisory shares. I'm not part of that. I'm just simply an advisor. So I want to make that clear. But not only is Nate a coach, Nate is an Olympic baseball coach. So he's, I just want to put that out there. He's very competitive. He loves to win. I loved watching the progress that you've made in this in the short period of time that I've known you. Wonderful. I'm going to date myself, but my generation, my parents had 35mm cameras and tons of photo books. And we used to love that as a child, like once a year getting together. And I really blew it because I have 4 children and I don't have all of my digital artifacts in one place. This would have been a super thing had I began with this. So with that, I would love to welcome all of our panelists. I'm sorry that I didn't catch you at the intro. We gave you a nice introduction. And what we'd like here is just, we'd like to, get a few questions for Nate. So if anybody has one, please kick it off and let's push Nate to the limit here now.
I'll start.
I'm happy to start.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I'm a baseball guy as well, and very passionate about it. But I would say also as an investor, one of the benefits of social media is that we can read a lot about you. The other element is also we can read into some things. And so I guess my big question would be, as a first-time founder of a business like this, are you 100% committed to this project?
That's a great question. Yes, is the answer. I'm totally in full time. I actually got a call from the San Diego Padres to give you an idea of commitment in January of this year. And they offered me the AAA hitting coach job for their affiliate in El Paso, Texas. And it's a huge opportunity. It's one level away from the major leagues. And I told them I couldn't do it because I started a tech company. And if that illustrates the level of commitment. So I'm totally all in on this. I've accepted, turned down job offers and accepted money from friends and family who I feel very, responsible to and for. So I'm all in on Footprint until the end.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Great answer, Nate. Elaine, you had a question?
Yeah, so good timing. I'm actually a new parent. I have an 11-month-old. And so I have been very much the on the parent side of this whole thing. I never heard the term sharenting, but it's very clear that most of my friends are doing that. I've also spent a bunch of time looking at a lot of these companies that are targeting more of the UGMA realm of bring all your friends and family, but as opposed to giving gifts, you give money and you put it into an account. When you think about what you're doing today, how much of it is a pull versus push? Meaning, I'll just give you my personal example. We take hundreds of photos a week, and even combing through that becomes a huge nightmare. And trying to figure out what you want to do, what the milestones are that you want to be recording, who you want to have in your small circle, especially given it's private. How much of that is me having to go and proactively find those things versus you telling me and kind of prompting me to go add things to Footprint?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So the personality of the product is really in these notifications and asking you what you want to upload, what your child's favorite songs are, how tall are they, any sickness and symptoms, if you want to keep an informal record, for example, of their medical history. So that's really where the, teaching people the rhythm and what they can upload is very, very important. There's also an automatic component that we were just talking about. So the app is automatically scraping news, top 40 songs on the Billboard charts on birthdays, things like that, and adding them to the account for you. So it's doing some of the work for you. But it's up to you how much you want to use it. One of the ways that we're sort of gaining trust from customers, again, is not wanting them to use it too compulsively. We're actually limiting the uploads. You can only upload 3 items a day to Footprint. Partly it's a trust thing. We don't want you to think we're trying to trick you into using it compulsively. Partly it's a business thing because we want to push people to the premium version. And partly it's about curating something with quality. So we want to create some quality through scarcity. It's not really a storage tool. It's not to put every single photograph that you take into Footprint. It's about curating this gift for this child and something that's going to help guide them through their life. So, this combination of things sort of educate the users what to upload and when to upload them and what the product is really about. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Nate. We have time for one more question. David, I wanted to go to you.
Oh, sure. Can you talk a little bit about the exit environment and when do you think this company is going to be sold? How much? What is it acquired, or what? How do we get our money back that we invest?
Sure. The short answer is I don't know. So we saw a real opportunity in the market to build this product. We are building it. We know we can get several thousand people using it, and we know we can sort of establish some level of traction. Beyond that, it gets beyond my own personal expertise. We obviously in our cap table have a bunch of exit scenarios and have that all laid out for investors at different levels, but they are projections and assumptions. And I don't want to be presumptuous, considering also that I'm a first-time founder, that I could even project that for you here. So I don't know.
Do you have any idea of, the type of revenue that this could, this business could generate?
Sure. And we have lots of supporting documents, and I'm glad to share that with any of you guys if you want to follow up, as well as I can demo the actual product for you if you'd like to take a look at it. And I can share, our entire financial model, as well as our cap table in the sort of investment journey, if you're interested in seeing it.
Okay.
We'll pass along information to the panelists after the piece and allow you to share information if they request some. But thank you very much. Nate, real quick, before we move on, we had a question from the audience. What age will parents give accounts to kids?
Yeah, so there's some sort of default options, 16th birthday, 18th birthday, 21st birthday. So one of the cool things about the product is you set up your child's profile, their name, their birthday, and their gift day. It's visible for the entire group, and there's even a little countdown clock in their bio that you can look at. So you see how many years, months, days, and hours there are until they receive that gift. And so the parents, as the super users within the account, have different permissions than the rest of the users. And one of those permissions is the ability to set and change that gift day to whenever they want. But the obvious options are 16, 18, and 21.
Okay, thanks, Nate. And I hate to be a bummer here, but
I squeeze in just one question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What happens if the account is abandoned? So let's say I do the $50 a year and then I forget, or, and then it lapses, my credit card expires. Do you keep that? Can you reinstate it? What?
Yeah, it's funny. We were just going through some of those flows in the settings yesterday with the team. But there obviously is a way to delete the account or to remove yourself from the account, or as the super user in the account to remove any of the other members or content. If an account just goes dormant, I don't know, it's sort of an edge case. So we're not thinking about it too much in building as we're building the actual technology. But one of the cool things is there's these 15-ish people in each account, and any of them can pay for the upgrade. So we're hoping that the conversion rate to premium is quite good. These are people that love each other, that want to give gifts and things to each other, and any one of those 15 people can pay for the conversion to premium. So that doesn't exactly answer your question, but hopefully gives you a little bit of a better picture of what the money looks like and how people can pay.
Cool.
Nate,
Thanks,
you
Nate.
so
Good stuff.
Thank you guys so much. Yep.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks,
That's very
Paul.
interesting.
Hey, as you're
Bye-bye.
leaving, just one last piece. I just want to bring this up. I have a friend that was thinking about starting a business like this. An end-of-life remembrance of a footprint would be a wonderful kind of component in a sales tool for this too. But great job. Look forward to seeing more.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you again. So right now we're going to move over to the two-hole. We're going to stay with the baseball theme because of Nate. Danny and Riley from heARsight. I love this team. They're incredible passion. We were so happy that they joined our platform and love to hear from them now. Over to you guys.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks for the intro, Paul. We'll get our deck pulled up here.
Awesome. Yeah, first off, thank you, Paul, and thank you everyone at StartupOS for having us. It's been a great experience this summer. So we're really excited to pitch today to you investors. So this is Riley and I, Danny, and we are building heARsight, a company that's building a product that will help you read the room with real-time subtitles and a heads-up display. So before we begin, I want to start with a little bit of an origin story, why we're here. So this is my girlfriend, Meg. She's hard of hearing. She was born deaf, and she's been using hearing aids her entire life. So in knowing Meg for the last 3 years, I've really gotten to see from her eyes the challenges that she faces on a day-to-day basis, even with hearing aids. It was during the pandemic that when people started wearing masks, I realized lip reading is a crucial component for anyone who is hard of hearing. Removing that aspect from their toolbox was a complete game changer, and it created a lot of challenges for Meg. In kind of researching this problem, I came across that Meg is just one of 430 million people worldwide who have hearing loss that requires some sort of rehabilitation or treatment. Of those 430 million people, though, only 99 million people are getting tested, and even less so are getting treated. So what's the reason for this major gap? We believe through speaking with stakeholders that it's the hearing loss stigma. The devices that are currently available for these people is simply, they're designed to work well, but not look good. So there's some sort of stigma associated with wearing hearing aids or having to hold your phone in front of you while you're transcribing a conversation. This goes into limited usability. So for example, if you're completely deaf, hearing aids aren't even a solution for you. Your next option is a cochlear implant, which is an invasive surgery, and it costs up to $50,000, which ties into affordability. So a lot of the solutions out there currently are just simply too expensive for a lot of people to afford. And the ones that are quote unquote affordable don't quite do the job as good as they should. So this comes to our solution. Our solution is heARsight. heARsight is a pair of glasses that displays subtitles for auditory inputs in real time. It would use a bundle of core technologies that are pre-existing, putting them together in this unique way to make a inconspicuous heads-up display. So as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, the user's talking to someone and their conversation's being transcribed in real time. In order to kind of confirm that our target audience really needed this, instead of just building it right away, we wanted to test and really understand what the needs were of our target customer and see if this is something they would actually want to purchase and use on their daily databases.
Yeah, so in order to do that, we set out to speak to multiple people in the hard of hearing and deaf communities. And we launched several ad campaigns as well as email marketing campaigns in order to drive people to our website, where we realized a 5.7% conversion rate, which resulted in over 100 signups for our waitlist. Those individuals that signed up for our waitlist, we then surveyed and interviewed, and 90% of respondents indicated that heARsight would solve the problems that they personally experience, at least very or extremely well. And then 97% 97% of those individuals indicated that they would be at least somewhat or extremely likely to purchase. Many of those leads were generated through promotions and endorsements by the Hearing Loss Association of America, namely 2 large state associations, as well as several regional chapters. Looking at the market size for heARsight, for a total addressable market, we've calculated that based off of the 430 million people in the world that the World Health Organization estimates to have hearing loss requiring some degree of rehabilitation. For our serviceable available market, we've calculated that to be 19 billion, and that's based on the number of people in the United States who already have hearing aids, yet still report some degree of hearing difficulty. And then for our serviceable obtainable market, we've calculated that to be $7.4 billion. And that's focusing on the 19.1 million people in the United States who have hearing difficulty, even with their hearing aids, already wear prescription glasses, and earn at least $50,000 per year.
So then looking at the competitive landscape for heARsight, since no one is currently building scripted subtitle glasses for real time, we're looking at both indirect and direct competitors. So indirect competitors being hearing aid brands. They obviously can't produce scripted subtitles in real time, but they do achieve a great deal of directional listening capabilities. They have a somewhat discreet design. However, they can be very uncomfortable for users to wear. And not to mention they come in at an extremely high cost. And then looking at the more direct competitors, Sony and Epson are 2 companies that have demonstrated that subtitle glasses work. They do scripted subtitles, but they are not in real time. So they work in a theater setting, like a movie or a play, where the user can have pre-programmed subtitles come across their lens. And then the elephant in the room is Google. Google is a pioneer in the augmented reality space. However, we believe that in order to build heARsight or something of the like, you need to have a hardware first approach. So if Google is going to go and build a pair of glasses for a whole suite of applications, we believe that you're going to have to design the hardware to have microphones ready to take on the type of input that we're expecting our users to have to actually build an effective product, which is where we find ourselves finding an area in this space.
So looking at the business model for heARsight, in addition to the primary revenue stream of the frames, we also plan to offer lenses and various lens add-ons that you would see with a more traditional eyewear brand. So including prescription lenses, as well as lens add-ons such as blue light filtering, anti-glare, et cetera, that come at higher margins. So between the frames and the lenses, we're projecting a combined gross margin of around 62%, selling at an ASP of just shy of $1,200. And we plan to sell through 2 primary sales channels, beginning initially in the clinical settings, audiologists and ophthalmologist offices, where we can build up that brand equity before shifting to a more direct consumer model and selling through an e-commerce platform. And then in addition, or in hopes of making heARsight more accessible and affordable to a wider customer base, in addition to out-of-pocket payment options, we're also actively pursuing HSA and FSA coverage for heARsight, as well as down the road, potentially traditional insurance reimbursement.
So then looking at 3-year milestones where we currently sit, we are in this pre-seed funding stage. So we're currently in the Race to Revenue Accelerator here at the University of Notre Dame. And then yours truly, the StartupOS, where we're trying to raise that pre-seed round. Looking to the end of this year, we hope to complete a more high fidelity prototype. We completed 1 prototype this summer, but we want to kind of make that more robust and do some more realistic user testing where we can hopefully file for a patent after, and then also apply for some grant money to kind of boost our funds that we need. Looking into next year, we're hoping to secure a seed funding round. A big piece of this, we believe, will be securing a partnership with Accenture, which we're currently in the works with. Accenture has offered us the potential to work in their accessibility labs to not only test our product, but to build our prototypes and then possibly test with their current employees and possibly future clients. Looking into 2024, we hope to have developed an MVP that we can actually begin selling through clinical channels. And then looking into 2025, we hope to expand the product line with more styles and options so that we can carry out an effective direct-to-consumer sales strategy.
Yeah, so as Danny mentioned, we are currently raising our pre-seed round. We are setting out to raise a $300,000 pre-seed, of which we have 25,000 soft circled. And we're hoping to achieve milestones in kind of one main bucket being product. So finishing the various iterations of the prototype in order to fully define a specification for the MVP, as well as funds related to the team and ongoing legal and marketing expenses in order to pull that off. So speaking of the team, in addition to Danny and myself, who met during the Esteem Tech Entrepreneurship Master's Program at Notre Dame, we also have Macy Hopkinson on our team, who heads up our marketing, as well as Callie King, who's our prototyping engineer. And then being first-time founders, the team has identified that there are some gaps in our experience, particularly in hardware. So we've started to build out our advisory board in order to fill those. We're really proud to have Will McLeod on our advisory board, who's a product manager at Google. He's the former chief product officer at Keen Home, and he was listed as a Forbes 30 under 30 for his work in manufacturing. We also have Mike Hundert on our board, who's the former CEO of Dorigo REM, one of the largest eyewear design and consulting firms in the world, and a past consultant for Amazon's Smart Glass project, as well as Dr. Karen Janout, who's an ophthalmologist and will be advising on the optical considerations for heARsight as we further develop the product. With that, we thank you for your time and are happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. I love your presentation. I think it's pretty thorough. The competition slide's amazing. And just real quick before I turn over to the panelists, I had asked the guys the other day, what's the latency of the real-time glass? And I think you said it was somewhere just about a second, which is as fast as internet's on the stock quotes on the internet. So that's pretty impressive. And I know once you get funding, it'll only go down from there. But anyway, panelists, over to you. Questions for heARsight?
Yep. I'll start. Great pitch, gentlemen. A few questions. I'm curious as to the technology that you're using to actually transcribe. Is that tech being used in-house? Is that off-the-shelf tech? Can you guys speak to that?
Yeah, so the prototyping that I'm doing currently is all off the shelf, just to get fast, lean, get something working so that we can test with users. Whether or not we would do that in-house or license that out in the future, that's a decision to come. But as of now, we're doing off-the-shelf speech-to-text translation.
Okay, got it. The second question I have is just around patenting. Can you speak to your overall patenting strategy? I'm curious if you're exploring utility patents or other potential patents out there for this technology and use case.
Sure. Yeah. So we actually recently won, it's called the RISE Award from Aurora Consulting, and it's a free consulting and application for provisional patents. So we're working with them and definitely kind of defer to them for their help on that. But from a strategy standpoint, obviously there's a lot of patents out there in the AR space, Google holding most of them. And so we're kind of still settling on exactly what our strategy is going to be with regard to patenting, but we think that we have some unique ideas related to particularly filtering out the user's own voice that may be patentable, and can't give you like a solid answer on that yet, but that's we're kind of looking at ways that we can carve out an IP strategy there around the existing AR patents.
Okay.
Hey guys, I have a quick question. This is great. Amazing, actually. So can you talk a little bit about your gross margins? Anytime I see hardware, I worry about, how you keep that up. But what's your confidence level in the 62%?
Yeah, so that's our confidence level is pretty high at that ASP, and actually now working with Will, our advisor from Google, he's indicated that he thinks the costs for like our COGS are actually lower than we had estimated. So and we're still like fully validating kind of that ASP with people's willingness to pay. I think we validated that that's a great initial price, and then like future versions with price erosion might bring it down a little bit. But I'd say right now we're very confident in that number at that ASP.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a standalone product. This is not interfacing with your smartphone or your watch or anything. This is completely on its own.
Yeah, that was our original idea, and that's something we're trying to stick to as much as possible. We want this thing to work offline, all the translation to work on device, which is possible. We've demonstrated that with the prototype I've done this summer. It doesn't need an internet connection, and it can achieve a very high accuracy with subtitles. Obviously, we want to make that higher and higher as we go, but later down the road, I think there's an idea to have it pair with a smartphone, just because I think a smartphone would be easier to interface with it to do configuration, settings changes, and also software updates. So there is consideration there to pair with the smartphone, but I think the core idea of heARsight is to work as independently as possible.
If it wasn't independent, could it be a lot less expensive if it was just a Bluetooth connection versus trying to build out the full sort of computing capability in the device?
Certainly, yeah, because if you run all the speech to text conversion on your smartphone, all you need on board the glasses is some sort of receiver to take that data and then project it into your lens. So yeah, there would be significant, probably less cost there, but that would be, I guess, a sacrifice to the this thing working offline.
Okay, yeah, and I think market research suggests that a standalone device is really important for at least a meaningful segment of the market.
Yeah, so kind of our like beachhead segment right now is the 65 to like late 70s range, and a lot of there's varying technology literacy in that group, and so a lot of people have indicated that like not having the technical complexity of the two devices would be beneficial. But I think
on and it works.
Yeah. For future products, we might consider those other options as well.
How long does the text remain on the glass, or on the lens, I should say?
I'm playing around with that right now, and I found that as long as words are coming through the stream, it just kind of scrolls. So if you're in like a long conversation, it'll just kind of scroll. And I kept, up to 5 lines of text. Otherwise, it's just too much to take in. And then I think once someone stops talking to you, it's like 7 seconds, and then it clears. And then you kind of have a reset. But that's an area where we think there's a lot of patentability with like UX and UI design to really make it like as cool and easy to, follow and intuitive as possible. And I guess that's an area we're currently playing with.
Yeah, I think that's some of the main goals out of our next milestones with the prototype and the MVP is really to understand the UX and UI considerations and what people are looking for with regards to those questions.
So one just technical question, as I'm aging and my eyes are not as good as they used to be, and thinking about what you mentioned about sort of your target. I mean, can you see that close and actually read if you're an average 75-year-old, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the whole idea of augmented reality is to create some sort of projector in the glasses to augment the visual to appear as if it's about 3 feet in front of you, which is what your hand is when you're holding your phone. So that's how it works. It's not, you're not seeing the clear image right on the glass. It's like kind of being augmented almost in front of you. But that's how it would work.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions for the heARsight team?
What do you think the hardest part of building this business is going to be?
Yeah, so I think as of a week ago, before we had Will McLeod like fully on board, we would have said product for sure, and developing the hardware product. I think now we feel pretty confident in our ability to do that with his guidance. So I think now it's, in my mind, I think around the IP strategy is a big thing, and figuring out how we really build out kind of our moat and maintain that. I think we're doing great work with just like building the brand right now and really getting integrated into the deaf and hard of hearing communities, which is kind of difficult to do. They're pretty prideful communities. And so I think that if we can continue that work, that gives us some advantage there, but really understanding how we build like a more solid moat in the future.
Great.
And how well can you, go ahead.
No, please, Elaine.
One last quick question. How well can you remove background noise, multiple speakers at the same time, things like that? If you haven't looked at, there's a product called Ava, which is doing a little bit what David was saying, is on device, but it's on phone. And that was one of the challenges, is when there is either background noise or multiple speakers.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's kind of a 2-prong approach to it. It's like, the hardware and software at the same time. So hardware, we have an idea to, point microphones in front of you to wherever you're looking, because that's going to be the person you're talking to. but still having microphones in the back of the frame that can kind of pick up ambient noise, or someone trying to talk to you, maybe they say your name. Those microphones can be kind of passive and kind of indicate you when those events are happening, but the microphones in front of you, we can use speech filtering and even speaker diarization to kind of classify different voices in a single audio source. So we're hopeful that the technology that's currently available can at least give us that capability, but as time goes on, we're confident that that speech AI is only going to get better, and we can utilize that to our advantage.
So I have two quick questions from the crowd. We have about a minute, so I'm going to ask for a very short answer. So the first one's more binary, yes or no. Does this work with prescription lenses, or will it?
It will.
Fantastic. And then this was a good question, and I thought it'd be great to clarify. What is the synergy with Accenture? Why are they interested?
Yeah. Well, it started with a lot of Notre Dame connections. So, and then it turns out Accenture has a really big accessibility push right now, both internally and then with their clients. And so they have, I believe, 26 accessibility centers in their US offices now. And those are centers where employees with different disabilities can come in and try a bunch of different assistive technologies and figure out what works for them and what they might want Accenture to provide in the workplace. So they're really interested in our product to help serve their employees, but then also to be able to kind of tell their consulting clients who are working on accessibility initiatives, like, hey, here's what you should be doing. And also, by the way, like, here's this product that you could buy that we helped develop. So.
Wonderful. Amazing presentation. Any presentation that starts with the customer pain point and then gets into the technology is usually a winner. So loved it, guys. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So next, we have third in our lineup, Roshane, who is a Nittany Lion, and he's trying to help mothers in labor out of the dark ages. So with that, Roshane, please tell us about Birthvue.
Hello, everyone. Excited to be here. So just as Paul stated, my name is Roshane Sasson, and I'm the founder of Birthvue, a patented AI-enabled labor app providing patients and hospitals with personalized labor details, helping to facilitate a more comfortable and efficient labor and delivery experience. So what is Birthvue? Birthvue is an innovative tool and an app for patients and hospital staff to utilize that helps improve and increase your delivery outcomes. Naturally, when mothers go into labor and go to a hospital, they generally intend on having a natural labor, so not one that involves a C-section. With this personalized labor app, it gives women the power that they need. Often women feel like, they have lack of control during labor and delivery. They don't have the information they want when they need it. So this is something that we are looking forward and trying to implement within our application. So let's get to the problem, actually. So growing up, I always saw software as a pretty unique tool. The possibilities were endless. And, back when I was around 6, I'm 25 now, I always saw this as, endless potential. So with that, as Paul described, I went to Penn State and I studied computer science and graduated with a bachelor's in computer science. And it was while I was at Penn State, I got the opportunity to work with an OBGYN. And while he was letting me know about the fundamental components of labor, the stages of labor, he also stated how difficult it was as an OBGYN to stay with patients and give them the information that they want and they require. Patients want to be updated every 10 minutes, but unfortunately, especially in understaffed maternity departments, it becomes kind of difficult for staff to interact with these patients. And additionally, the second stage of labor, which is the pushing stage, is a very key and important stage of labor, as a prolonged second stage of labor increases the risks patients face of complications and emergency C-sections, which patients obviously do not want. Additionally, wrapping all of this up are painful contractions that mothers are constantly going through, which they need support. Epidural anesthesia is something that a lot of mothers do. Unfortunately, statistics also show that they increases the chance of patients getting a cesarean. So we decided that, and we realized that there's a lot of factors that needed to be addressed. We figured that interconnecting patients and staff with personalized labor details was the best way to go. There was a gap very present and we decided to figure out a way to build a bridge to fix that. We want our application to maximize the patient's performance during this pushing stage. Once again, since the pushing stage is so key and pivotal, a maximized and an efficient performance will increase the chances of you having a natural birth, which comes with reduced prices since C-sections are about 1.75 times more expensive than a natural birth. And overall, the most important key is keeping the mothers in the know, keeping their anxieties low, confidence high, and prepared to tackle C-sections. But how do we do it? With our AI, essentially, we read uterine pressure strength data. This is information that fetal monitors, as well as colorimetrics machines, utilize and transcribe this data. And that is the only thing our application needs. While reading this data, we are on a scale of 0 to 100. We are able to indicate and detect when a patient is having an accurate contraction. Normally, doctors will utilize an average value of 50 roughly to indicate a patient is having a contraction. However, everyone has a different pain threshold. So our application uses this key and unique items and methodologies to detect when a patient exactly is having a contraction, whether that pressure is at 25, 40, or the generally regulated 50. As we take in this information, our AI then dictates and says if the patient is having a contraction or not, which it changes and prescribes into what we consider labor zones. Hospital machinery is often quite complex, so we designed a color-coordinated labor zone to simplify all of this information as much as we can. Here you could see the blue comfort zone as listed will only appear whenever the patient is not having a contraction. In addition, with our AI, it actually provides accurate and detailed prescriptions and detections and actually predictions of when contractions are going to occur. Orange represents a contraction zone, which patients would see and understand when they are actually having a contraction, as well as the estimation of its actual duration. On the right, which is another aspect of the comfort zone, could be considered the performance zone. Doctors utilize something called an MVU unit to show and dictate how well a patient is progressing during labor and their pushing stage. When a patient exceeds the minimum requirement of 200, the screen turns purple and it updates the score. This way, patients can see and understand how well they're doing during their entire labor and delivery process. Nulliparous women, or women who've never given birth before, have a significant longer labor time overall than women who've given birth to 3, 4 children. Why is this? Normally, it's because women who've given birth multiple times before, they're less anxious, they're more confident and more understanding. The certain pains from contraction they would feel, they would understand as something normal, a part of the process, instead of raising anxiety and stressing out and causing potential complications. We, utilizing this application, we want to bridge the gap between these numbers. We want, regardless of if you're a first-time mother or you've given birth to your 5th child, to experience the same pushing time. As you can see, a woman who's never given birth is going to be pushing for roughly 2 to 2.5 hours longer. So we want to minimize those times and have nulliparous and multiparous women achieving very similar labor outcomes. And that is how we've created Birthvue, helping staff and women creating a labor that's more in their favor. By giving them the information and knowledge they could take more control of their labor and delivery experience. They see the information they have and they could act accordingly. They will no longer feel like they're pushing too much, but they'll have a more gradual understanding of their labor details and maximizing the effects and efforts of creating a natural labor and delivery process. In addition to this, we've helped staff and developed a hub, what is we calling a Birthvue hub, which shows each of the patients connected through the Birthvue app and what their labor conditions are, whether they are having a contraction, whether they're in a comfortable labor state, or whether their labor is progressing exponentially. This way, doctors could utilize their time and expertise in providing the best labor care they can. And this is great for jumping into the market size. Our market size is roughly 1.6 billion, which equates to the amount of women who expect to be giving birth naturally. Obviously, there's women who will go and have a cesarean because of pre-planned and other circumstances, but that is our target total addressable market. After we take out, hospitals that will not have the technological capabilities to utilize this app, we reach a sum of roughly 1.1 billion, where this is a culmination of all the medium and high volume birthing hospitals, which make up roughly 90% of the total births that happen in America. Of this, with my current connections and marketing team, I believe I'll be able to get roughly 30% of this sum. However, through talks and negotiations with Premier and having a partnership, they have access to roughly 70% of the hospitals in America. So we'd be able to utilize their team and their connections with hospitals to generate roughly 70% of this market cap. We also have a great way, a subscription base of providing revenue and model. To the right, you'll see that we charge various prices based on the length of time a hospital wants to utilize our application. Most popularly for the annual price of $4.99. Averaging roughly the total pricings gives around $500, $550 per user. Calculated that by the total amount of patients a hospital will give birth to within a month period, we equate to roughly an ARPU of $100,000. With this, we'll be able to generate income throughout the company. Targeting the birthing market is something that is essential and creates an enormous opportunity. There are children being born every day, and there are mothers that constantly want to feel more in control of their labor. With a rapidly growing software as a service market, especially with our application working on success and minimizing the cesarean rate, we're looking to create an accurate and simple application that is very scalable to all and majority of the hospitals in America. Our team is a very product-driven team. We're working not only to reduce the cesarean to roughly 10%, which is what the health organizations deem it required, whereas in America, the cesarean is greater than 30%. So that is what we're doing. And we're also trying to decrease the maternal mortality rate. Studies show that African Americans and minorities are 3 times more likely to die during labor than other races, regardless of socioeconomic factors. And this is something that demands attention. So we're looking for roughly $2 million of seed to go through the full engagement process of hiring a suitable team and increasing the depth of the prototype. We currently have a light version of the prototype, but we want to rebuff that. We want to go through some tests and improve it, getting a more sustainable MVP. And through this, within the span of roughly 12 months, we want to be able to reach out and connect with about 10 hospitals that are partnering with us, ready to keep sending this application through trial and get user feedback and engagement. We are working together to create a labor that's more in their favor. So let's work and enjoy the benefits of utilizing this app and helping women experience a more comfortable and efficient labor and delivery process. Thank you.
Wow, great job, Roshane. This sounds to me like Fitbit for labor.
Essentially.
I'd like to pass this on to the panel. Elaine, do you have any questions on obvious reasons? And maybe I'll start there. Or
Sure, happy to. I'm actually going to stay away from the user experience piece, but more on the selling into hospitals. One of the most challenging buyers you could ever possibly go to. So when you think about that, what is your plan in terms of actually getting this into a hospital, and how do you navigate that sales cycle?
So this is a great question. Originally, because I was, as a first-time founder and I wasn't used to the hospital space, I thought that we would be able to go directly to a patient. You know, if a patient wanted to utilize our application, we would just go in with them, give them the application and set it up, and they would be able to utilize it. But because of hospitals and all the check marks they have to go through, this process became very tedious and long. So I realized that it has to be a step-down approach. We have to get the right buyer, the right value analysis team, the proper nursing staff to sign off on this in order to actually get it working. So normally we will go to purchasing directors, and then we work from that and go to from a top-down approach into getting this into the hospital, along with partnerships such as Premier.
Hi, this is Erik. It seems to me that if you were able to expand it beyond obviously I haven't given birth, but the actual birthing process is, it could be first time anyway, is obviously many hours to days. But it feels like if and this pulls on Nate's network effect slide from the earlier in the session, it feels like if you were involved with from the beginning, when you're thinking about diet and nutrition and health, combined then with this end of this process, I feel like it could have more of an impact long term for the women, and then ultimately have this network effect. And you could think about the subscription model even more from the patient rather than the hospital, would be some of my early thoughts. Because there's more to it than just the physical dynamic at the end. There's stuff involved all the way from the beginning.
Exactly. So eventually, towards the future, we want to be able to expand on this. So I guess we're at the end and we're working backwards, so that patients and women, even husbands, could feel as prepared and as knowledgeable as possible going into the labor and delivery process. They say a lot of strength training is something that women could do to get ready and properly prepare for contractions. So we're creating an entire separate aspect interconnected with this, where patients, as they're rounding that 7, 8, 9 month corner, could actually truly be prepared, as well as the husbands. There were examples of patients coming in, or me and my team were speaking to patients, and we would say, oh, so what stage of labor were you in? Because there's 3 stages, and they were just saying, I don't know, I was just pushing when I was being told to, and the husband is just there trying not to, irritate their wife or their significant other. So by creating, we're just trying to create an idea where a husband could also be in the labor and delivery room, or a partner, and they also have the knowledge to, help support and properly guide their wife through this. So it's a 2-team process, not just putting it all on the wife.
I would also look up WebPT. So there's been some successful exits leveraging content. So WebPT was physical therapy, an application, a web application that a patient would then use to leverage as they're moving on from the hospital or from a clinic to their rehabilitation. And the founders, I'm upset, it's one of the deals I missed, but they generated $1 billion exit in that space. So I think there's some related companies and people that you might be able to leverage that have been down this road before, that have learned a lot in a similar capacity as you are trying to do.
That sounds great. I'd be eager to talk with them.
To piggyback off of Erik, one thing I would potentially guide you to. So if you think about the hospitals, there's a lot of misaligned incentives in general in the US healthcare system, but hospitals are money-making entities. They are very, very, very much driven towards what is going to improve their top line. And if you think about it, cesarean sections, actually, they can charge a lot more from the insurers, the payers. So they're not incentivized where the patient is to decrease the number of C-sections. And so one thing to think about with Erik is, if you go more toward the consumer and think about the first point where they start thinking about labor, it's usually when people put together their labor plan or whatever, birth plan, which is quite popular now. Everyone seems to do it. I personally found it kind of silly, but every one of my friends did. That's a great insertion point because there's nobody that's tackling that. And that's months out. That's usually 2 to 3 months out before you're even going to give birth. That feels like an interesting insertion point, and then owning everything from that point until labor and delivery.
Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like a great area and a great fit for that product, giving it a longer life cycle instead of what we spoke about before, it being utilized towards the end of the cycle.
Is it critical to get insurance bought off on paying for this? Where does that fit in?
So insurance wasn't something that was at the forethought. Essentially, we were looking, as they were speaking, as Elaine was speaking about, how C-sections are actually, a money-making for hospitals. When looking and fully diverging into this, I realized that, first of all, roughly 30% of a hospital's income is from labor and delivery. And we realized that hospitals, normally when it comes to the insurance, there's ups and downs when it comes to hospitals. So they're actually not essentially generating as much income. My local hospital, Hackensack Meridian, their cesarean rate was roughly almost 40%.
I mean, I was talking specifically to pay for the $500 per user for your product. So if you're going to the hospital and saying, we want you to use this, how are they, I guess, a lot of, I think what we're hearing is, what's the value proposition for the hospital to adopt this? In other words, You said first step, we're going to get 10 hospitals. We're going to go, test it out with those. How easy is it going to be able to get those 10 hospitals to adopt this as that first step?
Well, so the route that we
trial.
So the route that we follow with it is a decrease in cesareans. This actually improves the mortality rate that patients have, and it reduces the amount of spending hospitals have to do. So although cesareans are more, they're paying the doctors for the cesarean, but the insurance companies aren't necessarily fulfilling their end. So this is what's also causing them to go in debt. So in reducing their cesarean, for example, the average cesarean rate is roughly 30%. Hospitals are supposed to be working on getting that roughly to a 10%. So if utilizing this application helps mothers have natural labor, that's reducing their costs as well as the hospital's costs and the output they're going. It's helping them. So that's how that would be the vibe.
So how easy is it going to be able to get those 10 hospitals? Are you talking to folks and they're saying, this sounds great, we'll do it? Have you had those conversations? Are there 10 already lined up?
Yeah, essentially, because with the application, there's not a lot of interface. There's already products such as colorimetrics machines and fetal monitors that are actually transcribing the data that we need. We just need the application to be there right next to the user for them to utilize it. There's minimal setup with IT teams and a lot of that stuff. So they see that and see the integration aspect of it, and they're ready for it.
I've seen some of Roshane's work. He's done a great ROI analysis that he could share later, I think. And also some of the work you're doing with Premier is really helping you get to the endpoints. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So through a partnership.
Yeah.
Are there any?
Roshane, on the insurance side, I'm curious, and I think it double clicks a little bit on what David was talking about. Is there a business case here for an insurance company to want to subsidize this because their claims, their losses would go down, or the premium, the amount they would pay would go down?
I'm not entirely sure. That's information I would have to do more research on when it comes to that. Originally, our intentions were to build the hospitals themselves, and then through that billing process, they would create the right pricing scheme for patients to utilize the application.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Any other questions for Roshane? Roshane, thank you so much. Great presentation. Look forward to hearing more. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. So now batting in our cleanup spot is Shannon in MyHealth Hatch. Shannon hits for power and average, and you'll see during her pitch. And Shannon, tell us about MyHealth Hatch.
Hi, let me get my screen shared and I will kick off. Let me know if you can see it.
Look good.
Slideshow mode. Perfect. We good?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. It's great to see you all. Thanks so much for inviting us to pitch here. My name's Shannon Ellsworth. I am founder and CEO of MyHealth Hatch, a company. We have built a software for consumers to help them navigate the healthcare system a lot easier based on a little past history I'll tell you about in a second, by pulling in records, education, resources, data, pretty much anything that you need in order to engage with the healthcare community, which is very fragmented. So a little bit about me. I am a 25-year sales veteran of infrastructure products. So I have been selling actually B2B2C for 25 years, bringing products to market like Wi-Fi. I could probably tell you a couple of big customers where we specifically the end users are consumers, and really doing large operational launches with B2B2C players with different networking products. It's kind of my background in what I've done. Why did I end up in healthcare in this particular situation? A little bit about the story with my mom. So my mom got diagnosed with 12 years with a chronic illness in her lungs, which eventually went acute with her pancreas. I was her key caregiver, taking care of her, trying to navigate the system, trying to navigate records, pretty frustrated, going broke, trying to get records everywhere, trying to understand, trying to get resources. And just really exhausted. We spent way too much time navigating the system. So in the process of after she passed, you look back and go, what could have been done better? Could I help this problem? Could I help others who went through the system? And that's when I started looking at what consumers have to deal with their particular engagement with the healthcare community, and out came MyHealth Hatch. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've built and how we're moving forward and how we can be successful with this. So what's the problem? The problem when you engage is actually, if you look on the left, is the patient view, and the average number per person of patient portals to pull your records is actually 6. I will tell you, as a healthy person, I have 7, and 3 of my doctors are not on a portal. Their records are kind of grabbed somewhere else. So you have to go around and grab those. They're also on separate EMRs. So an EMR is an electronic medical record system that holds your data. And I'll talk about those later on during the competitive piece. So you may have 6 different portals with different logins, different information. It's all visually different, and you've got to collect that. And sometimes it's transferred, sometimes it's not. You don't have a choice which portal you're on. You might be on an Epic portal. You might be on a Athena Health portal. They don't look the same. So it's really challenging. I live this. Then you've got to go do education. Everybody probably knows the big joke about not Googling your health. Very dangerous. As SEO at its finest is who gets paid the most. Last week, it told me I had a stroke. And it was an ocular migraine. So really dangerous. You have to go through that. You've got to kind of sort through yourself. And then resources. Just what resources do you have to help you through your system? Sometimes you have a care manager in the provider office. Sometimes you don't. You might have a provider who's on one system and you get lucky. And I can talk about those later. But it's not very often. There's probably about 50 million people in the country out of 342 that have a pretty good view of their records. So then you add on top of this challenge, which was my personal challenge, but as I researched, found that this is a growing challenge for all of us, is the caregiver view. So if you take just my problem, and then I have to go do that for my father, I take care of my father now. I don't have children, but people have children. Got a big sandwich generation trying to get in there. You can imagine how complicated it gets and how difficult. So this is the problem. Started to research. It's the pain that I felt. Started to research. Talked to a lot of people, including the medical community. They're like, "Yes, please. Can you solve that?" So we started coming together and thinking about how we could bring this together in a new, different way. In one view. And how did we have to do that? So the solution is MyHealth. It is a web platform. It is not an app. Many of the apps out there, there's 314,000 mobile apps. It gets scary. It's noisy. An app just overlays an already fragmented system. We very specifically spent a year building a platform that was not an overlay, but from the ground up, new infrastructure for patients that partners with the medical community and the EMRs that are out there to provide a view of all of the things that they need to be healthy, to manage a chronic illness. 6 out of 10 Americans have a chronic illness today, multiple patients. How do you do that? The providers are begging for help with this. Health data, education resources in one platform, specifically with the consumer as the end user. And then bringing in resources that would help, having care management tools brought in, proxy views, sharing, et cetera. There's a lot of things we'll talk about in kind of the competitive view of the things that we prioritized on the feature set, but we're ready to launch our MVP and get feedback and make sure that we can actually, we've prioritized them based on what we think is needed from the consumer community, in which case we would then turn that over to the medical community and say, hey, we've got this product for you that will help engage the patients. So that's MyHealth. We built the software. We started looking at the target market opportunity, where we should probably bring this to first. There's a lot of people out there who are looking for this. You might have heard, everybody's trying to solve this problem. It is difficult. I do like difficult challenges. It's my past, and each network opportunity that I've taken is to solve that complexity and try and simplify it. We really went down to the basics. And one of the big problems is everybody has a piece in medical records. So look at that TAM for medical records, 37 billion. Of that, how do you narrow that down just to the patient side of that and say, okay, there's a $15 billion opportunity to do better patient portals in a way that's consolidated, that your consumers are going to engage and really solve that patient engagement. That's kind of the next step that this solves, but we didn't add that in here because it's about, getting market traction and moving it forward and then bringing that patient engagement to the forefront. So in there, we looked at 3 different groups that really critically need this. And as you probably saw, kind of that one patient view and the caregiver view, caregivers really have a sense of urgency that probably the only other thing that compares to that from a consumer perspective is a chronically ill patient who has 2 chronic illnesses and has 4 doctors apiece. A diabetic, I think, has 7. So they're going to have multiple doctors that they have to try to manage, and they don't feel well. So those are really the 2 primary ones, with caregiver being the primarily redundant, because caregivers have a huge growth rate. You can see 53 million today, with a growth expected up to 90 million in the next 10 years. the expectation is the number of caregivers per patient is going to drop from 7 to 4. So the need to get them resources to make them more effective is really at a critical all-time high, especially with the medical community, not just in the consumers, but it's being called the next public health crisis with the CDC. So it is because usually the caregiver is also chronically ill. So you have this stacking of chronically ill patients. So that's really where we're zeroing in on. The care management coincides also with the ACOs. ACOs is an independent provider organization. So they kind of stand on their own and they're working together, accountable care organizations who work together to try and improve outcomes. That growth of having a care management team help that patient along, play the role of the caregiver, is at a 17% growth rate, CAGR growth rate, and it's a $23 billion market. So you kind of put these three things are lining up together for a really great trajectory if you can really nail that consumer use case, how they want to use it, what they like from the product perspective, and then how you bring that to market with the partners. Competitive matrix, I mentioned this before. This is really what we see as competitors, and it's not they're a direct competitor, but they're not. If you look at, you can see this chart kind of, lots of charts can be sales spun. It looks like, hey, we have everything. And the EMRs, Epic, MyChart, Follow My Health, et cetera, don't have the features. Look at somebody like Kaiser. They do have a lot of the features, but they also have a combined insurance and provider community that has kind of married some of these things up. So what this chart will really show you, if you look down the left-hand side, what a caregiver really needs: patient data aggregation, pushing data to all the providers, not just the providers at the time of choice. Probably a lot of questions around that. Proxy view, visualization of data, and educational content. Those are things that the consumer needs. The Epics, the Athenas, they're addressing the providers in a population health. So there's a mismatch of needs between those two, which is why we have this struggle, is the business models are very different. So this is what you see from a competitive standpoint. We're addressing all of the features that are needed. They're going to continue to push population health. So it's technically a very good marriage, although there are areas where we would compete. So as we go to market right now, our plan is to do two things. One is to sell to the caregivers directly to the consumer. I know it's very scary, but there's a lot of people who are has really started to move towards this and selling to the caregivers direct to consumer. They have a very big amount of money that they need to save, $7,000 in out-of-pocket costs. If you are out of town, it's $11,000. There's 53 million of them. They have 23 hours of caregiving. The amount of time, money, and just frustration they can save is worth it to them. And we've done a lot of surveys and beta runs with customers to see what they would pay and how much it would be worth it to them, because they do see value. They do see these costs. It's not an unseen cost in the caregiving community with a subscription-based model. And then a sell with, from a provider perspective, and this would be kind of in the first year. Second year, we'll move to payers and again start adding on. There's kind of this endless group of adding on groups who would absolutely value this kind of tool to augment their already existing tools they have. They're missing out either on revenue because they can't get shared savings in the VBP program, and they're hiring care managers to do this role. So there is a huge, if you look at the top 10 jobs right now, it's care management roles in the whole country, because people are, when they leave from the chronic illness, they need help management through it. So we have an opportunity to grab that budget, and that group is 135,000 ACOs right now, with again another subscription-based model that might be a shared cost model. This is just a quick view on how we would go to market from a pricing perspective. Very affordable. The highlight here is affordable, affordable, affordable for the consumers. We found a way to scale this to make it affordable, so it falls within the range of something that they could do, and something that people wouldn't blink twice at, being able to get their records, education, and resources along with proxy view, et cetera. The average app that people are paying for from a wellness perspective, $39 a month. So this is very doable. Really nice margins in this thing, in this product, in this pricing model. And then the shared cost model for partners. How would we share that? We would probably do a license fee with a per month fee. The potential, just a real simple, again, kind of trajectory. You probably see this from a lot of startups. What the point on this slide is really to look at the amount of customers that we would have to get in order to get this kind of trajectory. It's not untenable. It really is a strong SaaS-based model, starting with 13,800 consumers to get the feedback, et cetera, providers. And then you see, even in year 2, to get the kind of growth that we need, it's only 22 provider groups. It's not huge. So it's really an exciting opportunity. It was almost kind kind of, almost, it gets really exciting. It's just almost unbelievable at times where you can see the SaaS-based model that we really have an opportunity to knock this out of the park from a revenue perspective. Milestones. So real quick, last 2 slides, milestones. So here's where we've been. We started in actually February of last year is when we kicked off our discussion about what we were going to deliver, how we were going to deliver the product. In November, we got the prototype. February, we kicked off based on the prototype customer demos. We moved to MVP development. We've been working since February till now to do a number of things to finalize the APIs, UI, UX feeling, marketing content, and then MVP launch. On the bottom is what we've been funded. I've, personally funded 150,000, friends and family put in 100. It's full-time commitment for me. I'm committed to this. I've got 2 resources that are 50% committed, only because there is, we're constantly, they're actually trying to keep their lights on while we do this. And then another year and a half of resources of people that we've pulled in and out to commit and work on this product with us to help us get this off the ground. So the investment highlights, this is the ask, 500K. It's really about, where's your money going? It's broken around headcount, product, and marketing. It is not testing the product. It is launching and refining it, getting that consumer product feature validation, getting consumers on board so that we can get the features and refine the product, and then a provider pair operational model refinement. So this B2B2C is critical. You get the consumers to want to really understand how to engage, and you can prove that. And then you've got to be able to scale it up. And that's really where my success and my expertise came in, is that operational. How do we do that? Get that scaled. So when we go to a payer, which is the next big opportunity, they have 73 million subscribers. It's a huge opportunity, but it takes a long time. And operationally, you can't come out with just an app, and you've kind of, you've got to be really ready for that. And so that's really where our next investment is going to go, is going to be to getting the customers on board, validating the feedback, and then bringing on operational folks to really make sure that we have that operational model super tight before we sign up with the larger healthcare systems and payers. And that's it.
All
Thank
right.
you. Any questions?
Fantastic pitch, Shannon. A couple of quick thoughts. The C has been missing in healthcare forever, right? My banking, my trading accounts, I have access to everything. I can self-navigate. I can do things. And MyHealth Hatch seems like the very first steps towards providing and really delivering on value-based care. Without us having control or insight or knowledge or sharing that, especially with our family and our parents, it's key. So wonderful presentation. I'll pass it on to the panelists.
Hey, Shannon, great pitch. So the first question I have, obviously the data that's going to be housed or stored or captured is extremely sensitive. So I'd be curious to just get a sense of how you're thinking about keeping that customer data secure.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's usually the first one I have to knock out of the park. I had the same question myself. So the great news is there are already existing data warehouses that already comply with HIPAA and all the privacy rules. All of the cloud providers have healthcare security measures. So from a storage perspective, we went out and looked at different options. Google has one of the best, Oracle. We looked at somebody like Skyflow. They house data. They do financial data. So we kind of went into the financial world and said, who do you use to protect that data? Same thing. The only difference in healthcare is you don't, it's obviously somebody's personal health. Finances is just as bad. So we actually partnered with one of the financial warehouses to store. Our other big challenge, our personal security leap is making sure that the person coming on board is exactly who they say they are, authentication, and that we are marrying up. One of the big challenges in the data world, in the healthcare data system, is that everybody uses a different identifier. So you have to marry the person up. So if you get a John Smith, you better make sure you've got the right data. So that was really where our kind of secret sauce specialty comes in, is making sure we bring the right consumer and we can attach it to that right data. And then they're able to pull that data out of the warehouse that is secured by, a similar financial data warehouse.
Thank you.
Sure.
So this, as you probably know, you've probably run into the consumer mediated exchanges and some of the other exchanges. I mean, this is a holy grail. People are been trying to do this for a long time. A lot of companies have been started to try and figure this out.
Yep.
What is different? I mean, we know that Snowflake and Splunk, we've seen in other categories where being able to pull data and be accurate about it and then be able to provide value is probably the top of any investor's list. So why are you going to be able to do something that a lot of people are trying to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I kind of partially brought that in somewhere in the middle. A lot of what the other guys are doing is layering on top of an already existing fragmented system. So it's hard to pull, and we couldn't do that. We couldn't go into all of the EMRs and Epic and take all of that data as it is, different, formatted, not in the same place. We needed something centralized. So what's come a long way is the data exchanges have evolved. Back when in 2016, when Cures Act happened, all these companies came out and tried to do it. And they were trying to, it was, the data wasn't normalized. We're still normalizing data. So, well, we have a combination, kind of a 1-2 punch on that. One is the technology has moved far enough along, and we found critical partners who are out there who are actually pulling that and almost normalizing the connection to that data, and building up long-term relationships with these, where it's basically our kind of special sauce with them on this data. And then two is not presenting, but the wrapping of getting the right developer who knows how to take a CRM approach, which this hasn't done in the past, take a CRM approach for the consumers. It hasn't been applied in the healthcare. Like you say, C has been missing because everything has been focused on the provider, because that's the way everything was pushed out. So we've combined the data exchanges that are actually helping us normalize that data and pull that in with the sense of how do we actually bring that from a developer. I actually went through 2 developers where I had to shut down development because they were hard coding it. It's a very legacy way to develop it. And they weren't looking at things the way the financial industry was, or the telecommunications, where you have a modular platform. And so it's too expensive. They couldn't do it. It was $40,000 a connection. Just financially, there were so many things wrong about that model that we've corrected in the way we're going to market that we're sure will be successful. Our big challenge will be making sure that we can continue to throw features on that keep us competitive, because I'm sure people are going to see we've figured out how to do it. And now we've got to stay ahead and make sure that we continue to refine for the consumer, who is very finicky, of course.
Member actually say this, and I really like the point that when you're talking about the data exchanges, and they have come a long way, and then the advent of FHIR, the API, which is the interoperability standard that can also connect back to these EMRs. So I think there's some really great technology surrounding you that can really help your mission go forward without you spending a couple billion to do it.
Right. Yes. The first quote we got was about 1.5 million. We said, no, we kept scrapping it until we could get to the point where the technology and the pricing and all that kind of aligned in a great place for us.
Great. Any additional questions for Shannon and MyHealth Hatch?
I have a quick question, and then also a thought or an idea for you on the go-to-market side. So on the question piece, I'm familiar with all the new regulations around data interoperability among the EMRs last year, but is there any legal requirement for them to share with outside sources to get access? And kind of to piggyback on that, if you don't have 100% coverage of an individual's healthcare records, is that good enough? Like, do you have to have 100%, or is there a critical threshold where it's valuable enough to the end user?
2 great questions. So, and I think can you repeat this? So let me answer the second one, then have you repeat the first one, just to make sure I answer correctly. So the first one, is there a threshold? Yeah, we have seen, and what we've pulled is 80% in critical. So if you look at what somebody's complete healthcare data is, you may have somebody who's 70 who's got a lifetime, and some of those records just don't exist. So it's really going to be about critical. Probably what we're doing is we've got like 3 KPIs for it. It's going to be in the last 5 years. It's going to be 80% of what you need in order to engage. And then some critical pieces like your historical vaccine, surgical, telehealth, that kind of thing. So it's kind of a 3-pronged approach we're taking to what's going to make sure that the consumer doesn't want to leave it. So we said we have to get that right. And is it 100%? Most doctors can't get 100%. The system can't get it. And then can you repeat the first question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's just more around the legal requirements for EMRs to share data with external parties and how you're getting that. It's more, what I'm trying to get at is more of like the platform risk thing. Like, can they just shut off access to the data at some point?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So yes, that was another thing. That's why we didn't do what everybody else did, which was connect directly to the EMRs. You can do that. They all built up their own APIs. And we said, if we do that, they could shut that off. And we would also be dependent on their pricing model. So Epic, when they first came out and they shared their records, they were charging like $5 a record. It was an untenable business model. There is one national health exchange that was government run that is a not-for-profit. So that's stable. And there's 4 other data exchanges who have built similar data. They're all data exchanges. They don't warehouse. They're traffic cops. And you look at their business model and you could see how they have built it based on pricing, based on the model that they have to go to. So could they eventually turn off? Yes. That's why we have 5 at least. And that's creating a competition in the market that didn't exist before. So Epic, where everybody says Epic's the owner of all records, which they're not. They're the owner of the records that their doctors have. They could shut off, but we can still get the records. We're doing that today. There's a group called Care Quality that actually is all of the EMRs interconnect and anybody can connect. That's an organization. So that organization, they're also interdependent. For that to happen is very unlikely, but we made sure that we had multiple kind of backups from a financial and an access perspective, that we de-risk that whole part of making sure that we could get the records.
Got it. One thought for you on the go-to-market side. So I went down this caregiver rabbit hole a while ago, and there's like over $400 billion of government subsidies for caregivers. And most people who are caring for an aging parent or somebody in their family don't know that they can access this. So I didn't know that. I can send you some more information about this, and there are some startups that are trying to take advantage. But the way that they're doing this, and the way that I would think about it for you, is as opposed to charging the caregiver, pay them. And wrap in this, essentially, you suck in the government subsidies. You're paying them. The average is about $1,400 a month that a person is eligible for. And then you take a cut, and your cut goes to the product. And the product is wrapped in there, but it becomes a no-brainer for them at that point.
That's brilliant. Thank you. That is brilliant. I'm kind of stunned. That is brilliant. Thank you.
I'll send you some data on it, because I think it would be a really great. I was scared
when you said rabbit hole. I was like, oh no, she's gonna shoot down my caregivers. There's so much money that's starting to come to these. It's how do you navigate those dollars?
It's free money, and just most people don't know how to access it.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon. Great job. And I know you and Elaine will be in touch, but thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
So our last startup, hitting in the 5-hole, known for having a powerful bat with a disciplined approach to the plate, is Ben and his company Walkthrough. It's really targeting the first generation of low-income graduates, help them plan for the future. I've had the pleasure of spending some time with Ben and been so impressed with his passion, his insight, and his knowledge. So Ben, share it with us, please.
Thank you for that intro, Paul. Okay, so yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ben Bartolome, and I'm a co-founder and the CEO of Walkthrough. We are a public benefit corporation that makes personal financial wellness and guidance accessible to the underserved. So why is this a problem? The overwhelming majority of Americans cannot afford a financial planner, and 59% of Americans want financial advice, but don't know where to get it. And the effects of this show, with 38% of Americans being unable to cover a $500 emergency without having to resort to something like asking friends and family for a loan or charging it to their credit card. The simple story here is one of a cruel irony. As you know, the world tends to offer financial planning and advising exists for the upper middle class onward. And the more someone needs financial advice, the less likely they're going to be able to afford it. So what is our solution to this problem? Simply put, folks will connect their financial accounts to our platform. You can think of checking, savings, retirement, credit cards, real estate, and so on. And our software scans through their accounts' balances, transactions, asset allocations, and interest rates to then give them the next best move they need to make financially and empower them to understand why and how to make this move. We then make sure to emphasize the impact all these moves will have on their financial future in the long run. This is done through clear advice coupled with a playful UX that shifts personal finance from something boring and stuffy to engaging and even fun, which I'm sure you've seen would be a new twist for this industry. How does our solution actually stack up against the rest of the field as you know, consumer fintech is a crowded space, but no one has the opportunity for scale like Walkthrough does in the advising industry, as we are able to automate the advice we get. And it's important to note that we actually do give advice. We not only notice if your investment allocation needs optimizing, but also if your emergency fund is running low, or if you need life insurance, you have dependents relying on your income. In order to give that advice, we recently just became registered as an investment advisor with the SEC, which now legally allows us to give advice and charge for it, alongside all the other features and forms of wellness we will provide on the platform, which other companies only cover a fraction of. And so now that we can actually give advice, who are we giving the advice to? Who is Walkthrough for? Though we eventually hope to serve all 70% of Americans who need us well, we know we need to hone in on a target demographic and make sure we serve them very well, proving our value proposition and having them love our product. More broadly, we're looking to serve recent first-generation low-income college graduates, known as the FGLI community, as you can see on the right-hand side. We're looking to serve them very well, and this is best illustrated through a persona. So now back to the left, meet Janet. Janet is 27 years old and has been working as a product manager in Los Angeles, where she's originally from. She went to UCLA to stay close to family while studying, and now she's making money not only for herself, but also to support her parents and siblings. It's more money than anyone in her family has ever made, and she's worried about both making sure there's enough to support her parents as they age, but also making sure she'll have enough for her own retirement. She's navigating these types of questions for the first time, both for herself and her family. Again, you can see all the reasons we're focusing on FGLI folks on the right-hand side, but I want to highlight the last point of differential access, as I myself am part of this community. I grew up poor in New Orleans, the oldest of 4 siblings to Puerto Rican and Filipino parents, and much of Janet's story is a reflection of my own. I have done a lot of advocacy work in this arena, not only at Yale, where I went to undergrad, but more broadly, which will be important for our distribution story later. Now that you've heard a little bit about my narrative, I'll introduce you to the rest of the team. So y'all have met me already. Hi. And I've been blessed to work with my 2 co-founders, Megan and Erik, over these last 11 months. All of us are working full-time on Walkthrough, and we've also been bootstrapping from our own savings the entire time. We met at Yale a decade ago, which is kind of remarkable to say out loud, given that we're supposedly young. And since graduating, we've worked in tech and finance. Megan and Erik as software engineers at Google, and myself as a data scientist at the Navy Federal Credit Union. I've also been a very active alum for Yale, particularly in the first-generation low-income community, and I am on the Alumni Association's Board of Governors, which gives me access to students and alumni not only at Yale, but also at peer institutions that allow us to get in front of this audience in a much more targeted fashion, which wouldn't be available through normal means such as Google and Facebook ads. Speaking of how we're rolling out to the world, we're looking to capture a $19.4 billion total market that would encompass the 70% of all Americans who need financial advice at our price point of $100 annually. First, we are starting by focusing on the recent and soon-to-be graduates of Yale and peer institutions, again, due to my access to those alumni networks. Once we've proven product market fit for these folks, we can continue expansion to all colleges and universities, and then to young professionals and so on, aiming to serve every American who needs financial advice but couldn't afford it before Walkthrough. To that end, we are laser focused on getting Walkthrough in front of consumers in a cheap, transparent, and accessible way, when most companies in the space would much rather take the opposite approach. In these first few years, we're leaning heavily into getting our product directly into the hands of our audience at a price point of about $10 a month or $100 annually, which is over 10x cheaper than industry standards. And this is enabled, again, by our approach to automation and scaling. However, though we believe it's important for folks to pay for our product up front while we're in this early stage to prove our value proposition to them, we would eventually prefer if the end user didn't have to pay for it. To that end, we are looking at employers to pay for it on behalf of their employees as a wellness benefit, or universities to pay for it on behalf of their alumni, because universities love for their alumni to have lots of money to donate back to them, or nonprofits to pay for it on behalf of their communities for similar reasons. That last point about nonprofits will be one we circle back to on the next slide, as we have some developments on that front. And even further into the future, or perhaps soonish with additional funds available, there's a prospect of white labeling our software for different financial institutions. You can think of traditional banks to, more novel fintechs, all of whom should have interest in getting scalable financial planning to their user bases and integrating on their platforms as we make our API commercially available. Again, we are laser focused on the B2C side of things to prove our value prop to our members, but also know that we have other options available to monetize. I just mentioned that we're in year one of building on our end, and there's been a lot of progress in the last 11 months since we started Walkthrough. There are a lot of details here, but I'll highlight a few for you. We just wrapped up Q2, and it was a big one for us, where the first version of our software is available to test and is currently in a closed alpha with our friends and family, 100 of whom are giving us valuable feedback that we're iterating on right now. Further, we also officially registered with the SEC as an investment advisor, as mentioned before, which was a huge hurdle for us to clear, and now allows us to fully operate as an actual business. We can start marketing, targeting our members for our services, and so on. In this quarter, Q3, we're going to make our waitlist public, where those who are interested can sign up in addition to the more than 650 we already have waiting. And finally, to give a glimpse about how we're going about distribution, we just signed on to a pilot program with the Los Angeles Urban League, which is a nonprofit that's committed to economic empowerment for the disadvantaged in the Los Angeles area. The pilot program would involve the Urban League paying for Walkthrough on behalf of some of their community, alongside some financial webinars we'll have developed for them. If that goes well, we'll expand to the tens of thousands that they serve in the area. And if that goes well, we'll have the opportunity to syndicate to the 89 other urban leagues across the country, which collectively serve millions of people through their national network. And the Urban League is just one of such nonprofits we're currently in conversation with. To help us get there, we are looking to raise $1 million via SAFE for 18 months of runway at a $6 million post-money valuation. This is to cover our salaries and benefits, the hiring of 2 to 3 developers, ongoing legal and compliance fees, which are high in a tightly regulated space as ours is, as well as covering the increasing infrastructure costs as we continue to scale. We're Walkthrough. Thanks for listening, and thanks to StartupOS for the preparation and mentorship here, as well as this opportunity to present to y'all. You can check us out at walkthrough.co. We cannot yet afford the M in .com. And if you have any interest in testing our closed alpha or looking to collaborate or have any additional questions, I'll look forward to chatting over email here. Thanks.
Amazing job, Ben. Great job. And congrats on the SEC approval. I know that's not easy and really well done. It's ironic that the people without market knowledge and the ones that need this most haven't had access. So I think you're uncovering a huge industry pain point. And so I'm going to pass this on to the panelists for some questions.
Ben, one of our fastest growing companies is a company called Nudge Global. Do you know that company?
I may be familiar with it. I know of a few companies that have Nudge in their name, but yeah, I think I'm aware.
So Nudge is a personal finance and wellness platform that we have taken to the enterprise to offer. So Janet, where does Janet work?
Janet would work for some generic, tech company in the Los Angeles area.
So they're growing fast, and so the idea is that the benefit of being connected on the employer side, obviously, is they can integrate their onboarding, they can integrate all of their company-specific information in addition to the personal finance, and then they can integrate their options and a number of other things into their program.
Yeah.
So it's a very anyway, it's doing very well, and it sounds a lot like what you're trying to do. I understand what market you're going after. The second comment will be, do you know Andrew Myers?
Andrew Myers, I do not.
So Andrew is the CEO and founder of Ripple Match, who is also...
Oh, wait, I know his co-founder, Erik Filipek, very well.
Yeah. So Ripple Match, if you guys don't know, has just raised 25 million. It sounds like I heard this. I'm pissed actually that I didn't put the money in because it was a little early when he presented it to us 2 years ago. But they are an ideal partner for you because they're going after the exact same user base. They're trying to be linked in before the person gets on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually just chatted with Erik just a few months ago at our 5-year reunion. And so definitely have it in there.
Yeah, you should definitely talk to them. They must have a course at Yale on this broader category of the next generation students. So it's great. I think it's a hot space. I mean, it's so topical right now. But just be careful that there's a lot of money going after this, and the enterprises understand it, so they're investing heavily in it right now.
Yeah, agreed.
Any other questions for Ben?
I mean, my main questions were, along the lines of what Erik is touching on, is just that customer acquisition piece. Certainly through the enterprise, that made a lot of sense if you can get that the enterprise engaged. Certainly, that brings up a lot of questions about you versus competitors and how valuable it is. But put that aside, if just your target base, getting customers aware of this, to sign up, willing to pay, I guess was just hoping for a little bit more insight. You gave the one sort of example, but a lot of the folks that I've known, or I think about myself at that age, I wasn't thinking about this, and I probably wouldn't pay for anything.
Yeah.
And so, what gives you comfort that you can acquire a customer, get them to sign up, pay, and stay engaged?
Yeah, for sure. So the reason why we've chosen the approach that we have is that, particularly for first generation low income folks, the onus to make money and to provide for your family is like very immediate, and as soon as you start generating income. And so it is true that most folks our age may not be thinking about these type of things or living the high life or what have you. But for everyone that I've talked to, and for my own experience, I know that it is an immediate pain point where, again, thinking about my parents' retirement insofar that I am their retirement and juggling those types of burdens and that type of thing. And so these questions are very much accelerated for this demographic. And my ability to get in front of them and to go perhaps a little bit more in depth on that, where, again, because of my connections through the Yale Alumni Association Board of Governors, I have easy access to other alumni networks and such. And so we're just going to be doing the scrappy things of giving financial webinars to these different audiences, collaborating with the universities, giving webinars to nonprofits like the Urban League and that type of thing, and getting in front and getting buy-in that way. As opposed to, as I'm sure you're, reluctant, or you would know that the CAC for the traditional routes of Google and Facebook ads and those types of things can be quite high. And so as such, we've taken a very deliberate approach to go against that.
Yeah, but he's saying they're not going to pay though, Ben. The key is getting leverage so that they don't have to pay, and that maybe they can get the product and then they upsell it. You can upsell them a more premium version, but you got to get it in their hands first, and it's probably going to need to be free.
Yeah, well, I agree with that long term. I think there is probably something, and you guys may have more wisdom than this than I do. But I do think there is something about getting a non-trivial amount of people to pay for it, to make that pitch to employers and other entities to say, look, people like this, they're willing to pay for it, and your communities are interested in this, you should be willing to pay for it on their behalf. Again, that we're demonstrating the value that we think we are.
Hey, Ben. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
Marcus. So along these lines, have you any sense of customer acquisition costs? And because I agree with the B2B2C side and the B2B, I think that might be a better angle. You got to really be careful with your acquisition cost on this lifetime value, churn, all that good stuff. I mean, $10 a month for this sector, that's real money, right? So
yeah. So the answer is, because it's just the three of us, we don't, all the, canonical sales cycles and those types of things are just all being done by me. And I haven't necessarily put, you know, $1 per hour value to my own personal time, actually zero right now, but in some sense. But I know that the canonical cost for Google and Facebook ads and those types of things in the industry can be anywhere, depending on, you know, how niche your market is, anywhere from $40 to 100, 150 or more per person. And again, which is the reason why we're not taking that route. Like we have to be more clever. And so to give like another example of one way that we might continue to scale is that people aren't always looking for financial advice all the time, right? If I go and tell you, hey, you know, you should be investing in your Roth IRA this way or that way for your age, you may be like, oh, that's great. That's probably not even top 10 priorities of what I have to do. I have to figure out what I'm making for dinner tonight and all this. I'll get to it later. But there are certain, you know, milestones in your life where you are looking for financial advice. It's probably when you're switching jobs, getting married, these types of things, you know, doctors entering residency, so on. And so one thing we're looking about is getting to people at those touch points, you know, perhaps similar to Shannon and Roshane, but, you know, going to medical schools when they're onboarding their doctors in residency, going to churches when people are getting married, those types of things, all high level. But yeah, hopefully you get the gist of our approach more broadly.
Okay. Quick question. Do you, Tom, sorry, I don't know if there was a follow-up to.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. I appreciate the deck on the team. I didn't see, and forgive me if I missed it, but I didn't see anyone with experience actually, you know, in just kind of like the wealth management, financial planning space. Can you speak to either having access to advisors who are helping you think through that, or hiring people who can help you think through that, or help enable you to be seen as kind of like an authority in this space?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's a really excellent question, because so I've worked in finance the past 6 years since graduating, and as I continued to develop my own personal financial literacy and such, I became increasingly like a touchstone for other folks in my, you know, community, family, friends, and such. And they relied increasingly upon me for questions. And that's actually how the idea for Walkthrough got started, where I was doing maybe like pro bono consultation for different folks. And as I tailored my advice to different people, I was saying largely, you know, following this really massive decision tree of decisions and things that would be wise for them to do. And so a lot of it in some sense is self-study, but in order for us to register with the SEC and in kind of furthering the work that I had done for the community on my own end, we have to take exams and such. And I took those exams, which were the Series 65, in order for us to be qualified to register, and then subsequently approval there on that end.
Okay.
Yeah, so the answer is that I'm personally qualified.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Ben, amazing. Thank you so much. And
thank you guys.
Thank you again. I want to thank the startups that gave us their time. I want to thank the panelists for their incredible participation, and for anyone who gives startups a chance or an opportunity. I think Ben Horowitz said it best, so I'm going to quote him: the biggest myth that it's all fun. The reality is creating and running a business is an incredibly tough grind. It's emotional, debilitating, and it can be euphoric, but more often than not, it's terrifying. StartupOS is 6 months old, and this is the first of many Pitch Perfect days. Please follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter to see what we're up to. And thanks again. We're signing off. Appreciate it, everyone.